Hey guys, this is the second Wednesday of the month, which means it's the Meet the Attorney episode. And in this episode of Meet the Attorney, I'm going to introduce you to an attorney that actually focuses on mediation for their clients in terms of divorce and all that kind of stuff. She is a divorce attorney as well, but her main focus is mediation. And I think it's a very interesting topic. We had a great opportunity to meet this person. And if you're in the New York City area, I think you guys will benefit a ton from that. And even if you're not in the New York City area, she actually has something that I think you can use in terms of things that if you're thinking about divorce, you may want to check out. So without further ado, I'm going to bring you right into the show.
Hello, and welcome to Marketing Solutions for Local Businesses, the podcast where you will discover all the latest and greatest digital marketing tools, tips, and strategies you will need to implement in order to stay ahead of your competition. If you are not getting the results you are looking for from your digital marketing efforts, this is the podcast for you. And now, here's the host of our show, the local business guy himself, Frank Deming.
Hello, everyone. This is Frank Deming, the local business guy, and welcome to another episode of Marketing Solutions for Local Businesses. Happy Wednesday. Happy hump day, everyone. I hope you guys are having a rockin' week thus far. Today, we are doing our Meet the Attorney series, and I have a great guest. As I said in the pre-intro, someone that I think if you're in the New York City area, you need to know. And her name is the great Joy Rosenthal. How you doing, Joy?
I'm great, and I'm thrilled to be here. Thank you so much, Frank, for having me on your podcast.
Thanks.
This is just terrific.
Thank you for coming. I know you're a very, very busy woman. In the pre-intro, Joy, I already said a few things about you, but for all the listeners, I always like to let the guests actually talk about themselves. So who are you and what do you do?
Well, I'm thrilled to be here. As I said, I have run Rosenthal Law and Mediation since 2006. And before that, for 10 years, I represented children in Bronx Family Court. And then I did some criminal defense for kids in Brooklyn Family Court. Those were both really eye-opening experiences. Mm-hmm. I'm a proud graduate of the CUNY School of Law, and I teach family law there now. And so you're right, I am busy this semester. I have 35 students and 38 students before I had like 15 or 17. So it's taking a little adjusting, but it's all good. And I also have an online course for people who are getting divorced called Landing on Your Feet, A Compassionate Lawyer's Guide to Divorce. And these are in addition to my divorce mediation practice. So I don't represent clients in court, but I do divorce mediation, and then I file those cases in court as an uncontested divorce. So I am kind of busy, but it's all good.
Interesting. I would love a link to that course so I could share it in the show notes, if that's okay.
Of course, sure.
Awesome. I'll put that link out so everyone's interested in grabbing that course. So today I have a very interesting topic, and I think this probably so far. I know it's early on in the year, but probably my favorite topic so far in the show. And we're going to be talking about whose kids do you want to put through college, yours or your attorneys? And coming from an attorney, that's pretty interesting. That's why I find it kind of funny. So let's get into it if you don't mind. Any questions about that topic before we get started, or?
No. It's kind of what I say to my clients. Whose kids do you want to put through college? Yours or mine? Like, you could spend like $100,000 on your divorce and usually end up with the same settlement as what you would have done if you had like just sort of agreed to stuff in the beginning.
Right.
And I mean, it's really sad. I see and I hear about people who spend their retirement on their divorce proceedings. They take out loans, they borrow money from their parents, they take money from the kids' college fund. And
Oh, really?
it's funny, but it's not funny.
I've never heard of that one.
Well, because divorce is really expensive, right? If you think about it, how much do you pay your auto mechanic? Maybe $100 an hour, $150 an hour. The plumber, the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
The contractor, around the same. The only person that gets paid hundreds of dollars an hour would be your doctor, but we all have health insurance. We don't have legal insurance the same way. So it might be that, lawyers' fees are incredibly expensive, including mine. I'm not saying that I'm not giving away my services, and I'm not rich, but and I'm not saying they don't deserve it, but it is probably one of the most expensive processes you're going to go through in your life. And if you think about it, also, most people, and sometimes people will have a personal injury suit or something, but most of the time, the only time you really go to a lawyer is to get your wills done, and if you're getting divorced. I can't think of a lot of times that most people would need a lawyer otherwise. So it's hopefully a once in a lifetime thing. And there are ways to do it that are less expensive and less stressful.
Once in a lifetime thing, you mean getting divorced?
Yeah, sometimes 2 or 3, unless you're Liz Taylor, right?
Well, you're on the other side here. You're talking to a person who's been divorced 4 times, so I know exactly what you're talking about. Anyway,
it's stressful each time, right?
Yeah, it's a lot of money and everything like that. But I was easy. I did not fight. I didn't take money from my kids' college fund. That's for sure. Anywho, quick question for you. You've got a lot of experience. You're actually teaching about it. What's the first thing you should do when you decide to get divorced, or if it's decided for you, and in some cases it's decided for you? What's the first thing someone should do?
Well, most people think, oh, am I going to stay in the house, or how much alimony am I going to get? How much money am I going to have to live on? Those are all important questions, but that's not the first thing. The first thing you should try to figure out is, how are we going to get divorced? There are decisions that need to be made, but how are these decisions going to be made? We all sort of, our knee-jerk reaction, what we grew up with, is that I need to get a lawyer who's going to fight for me and then take it to court and the judge will decide. But that's actually not what happens in almost every time. Very few cases go to trial. And that's because it's so expensive and it takes so long. So the first question to ask yourself is, can we go to mediation? Is that appropriate for us? Because if you can go to mediation, there's a lot of advantages of mediation. One is that you're in the driver's seat. You and your spouse are the ones making the decisions. And I think that's really important, because you're the ones that know your situation the best. You know your strengths and weaknesses. You know what the kids need if you have kids. And if you can make decisions together, that you're the ones that can tailor it in a way that nobody else can. But it takes, I guess I should back up for a second. And the other advantage of mediation, of course, is that it's less expensive. It's usually a faster process. And you have more control over the timing. The disadvantage of mediation isn't always appropriate if there's a big power imbalance, or if there's domestic violence, if there's substance abuse, including alcohol, if one party has mental illness or can't make decisions for themselves for a certain reason, for any reason.
Right.
So it's not for everybody, because you really need to be able to look at what you want and need and express that. And yes, and of course, it takes some listening to what the other person wants and needs, and wanting resolution more than you want revenge, which is actually not always so easy.
Wow.
Sometimes, it depends where you are in the process too. In the beginning of the process, people are much more emotional than they are later on. So they're more emotionally volatile, and some people just aren't ready for it. And maybe later on they will be.
That was gold. That was gold. Do you handle mediation?
Yeah, that's what I do. I'm a divorce mediator.
So you're basically so you're not a divorce attorney at this point. You're more of a mediator at this point. You wanna help with conflict.
I help people. I do both. I don't go to court. I've never been a divorce litigator. When I did litigation, it was when I was representing kids. And working in family court, which in New York family court is different from divorces. But it's a little not very logical. But there's another process called collaborative law, which is sort of a hybrid between having a lawyer and mediation, where the lawyers are trained as mediators and work together to help the couple resolve their differences and come to an agreement. But it's a series of 4-way meetings where you have the couple and each of their attorneys, their collaborative attorneys, in the room. So right. I do that also. And in that way, I do represent clients in divorce.
Gotcha. I got you. I'm hearing that New York City siren in the background. I love it. Yeah. No, I love it.
Brooklyn's in the house.
Exactly. I love it. I'm a New Yorker, so I understand it. Now, having gone through divorce 4 times, I can ask you, as I would love to know the answer to this next question. It's very stressful. Okay, it's a stressful thing for both. For both parties, but the thing that I think that's really, really damaging is the stress that is put upon the children. So do you have any advice for people who are probably going through a divorce right now, or maybe need some mediation in New York City, that you any advice that you could help protect the children from the stress?
Yeah, well, the number one thing, and it's really hard to do, I'm sure you know, is not to complain to the kids about your ex, because you and your ex are getting divorced, but the kids are not getting divorced from your ex, right? Mm-hmm. So it's hard to remember, but your ex is your child's own other parent, and usually only other parent. Right. And so I think it's really lovely when people can really put their children's needs above their own. And it's very, very hard to do, especially because it is so stressful. That's the biggest thing. And try to talk to each other, if it's possible, about the kids, and try. I think about divorce as being a transition from one family configuration to another. And my goal when I'm working with couples is to help them get to a place where they have the kind of relationship with each other that you might have with coworkers. You're cordial, you're working together on a project, you're not asking a lot of questions about each other's personal lives. What they do in the evening is their business. But during the day, when you're at work, you have a relationship and you can speak freely with each other. You're civil with each other. And if ex-partners can get to the place where they do that, it's fantastic. And the work that they have together is raising their kids. So some of the couples I work with will check in with each other once a week, just to have a conversation. Like every Saturday at 10 o'clock, they'll call each other and just like, how are we doing? How is he doing in school? What happened at camp this week? What happened after school? do you need anything at your house? Do I have any clothes here that I should send back with her? Those kinds of questions that
Yeah.
are not getting in each other's business, but it's doing the work of co-parenting together.
Mm, yeah. Yeah. That's a co-parenting is not an easy task. If I may call it a task. Um, but it's doable. I was able to do it. So it's a doable thing. It's just not easy. So I can understand. I can only imagine the conversations you have in mediation. um, so with that, in the beginning when we first started this podcast, you mentioned something that I did not know. So I want to find out a little bit more about this online course. I'm going to put a link up to the folks in the notes, but can you tell us about it a little bit more? What does it entail?
Sure. So let me just back up for a second, tell you what happened, how I started it. So I was
that's even better.
Teaching family law to law students at CUNY Law School, City University of New York. And I was thinking, well, the kids are learning it, but they're in their 20s and 30s. Most of them aren't married yet. And here they are learning divorce law. Like, is this really going to be relevant for them? But, it's interesting. A lot of them, of course, have their own experiences as a child of divorced people or knowing people who are divorced. And then COVID happened and we had to turn everything online. And everybody had to pivot, and we went from being in person to teaching online. Yep. And they taught us a lot about online learning. And then I started thinking, well, why don't I take what I'm teaching to the law students? It would be really good for people who are getting divorced to learn it too. So I started developing this online course. And there are basically 4 things that you have to figure out when you're getting divorced. And there's a million details, but these are the 4 basic categories. How are you going to support yourselves, whether one person's paying alimony to the other? What do you own together and what do you own that's separate? And how do you split up what you own together? And then if you have kids, where are the kids going to spend their time and how are you going to make decisions around the kids? And then the 4th one is, how are you going to support the kids, child support? So 3 of those are economic, right? Alimony, dividing up the property, and child support. And then the other one is really about raising the kids. Right. And so the online course does some introductory stuff. We go over the differences between mediation and collaborative that I just sort of mentioned, but of course in much more detail, help people figure out which is the best process for them. I go over with them how to fill out a budget sheet, how to fill out a list of assets and debts, because you need that for every divorce. And then we talk about parenting plans when we go into each of those 4 categories. So it's really helping people understand the law and what the thinking of the law is, and then help them move through so that by the time they finish the course, they're very prepared. They know what questions to ask their lawyer. They understand sort of how they fit in, and they get some tips on negotiating. And they're just much more well organized and know what to expect.
Mm-hmm. Let me ask you this. So I know you're in New York City, but if someone is in California, will they benefit from this course?
Yes. So it's true that most divorce laws are state laws.
Right.
But they have similarities. There are differences, of course, but there are similarities, and the concepts are the same in every state. So I always encourage people, when they take the course, they should speak to a local attorney. They should find out exactly what, but I can help them know what questions to ask that they might not have thought of, because I'm still looking at it from a legal point of view. I can't give legal advice. I can only give legal information, but I have a lot of legal information I can share that's helpful.
Okay, gotcha. And the course is it something that you think it's best to get when you're thinking about divorce, or it really doesn't matter where in the process you are in?
I think it's most useful for people who are either thinking about divorce or in the beginning stages of it. As you said, like the people who either have decided or somebody else has their spouse has decided for them, we're getting
Right,
divorced, and they let you
right,
know.
right.
I think that if you do it too early, when you're still very emotionally volatile, you won't get as much. It's harder to learn in that kind of situation because
Correct.
there's so much stress. And if you do it at a certain point, you don't need it anymore. Like if you're 99% of the way through your divorce, you don't really need it anymore. So that's been the trick for me about finding people when they're at a certain stage, in the beginning stages of their divorce. That's really when
Right.
it's the most useful.
I gotcha. And does the course have a name?
Yes, it's called Landing on Your Feet, A Compassionate Lawyer's Guide to Divorce.
Awesome. Awesome. Again, I'm going to put a link to that. I like the name. So actually, I'm listening to you, and I think this is a fascinating idea. I've never actually heard of it before. So I'm just curious, why are you doing this?
I'm doing it because, one, it's fun for me. I love teaching and I love helping people get through a really stressful situation.
Mm-hmm.
Divorce, as you know intimately, right? As you said, it's really one of the most stressful times in somebody's life.
Mm-hmm.
And I started my career representing kids in foster care, representing kids whose parents were accused of abuse and neglect. And I got to know kids, and I represented hundreds of kids, and I would have wonderful conversations with them. And it was really clear to me that they were really loyal to the adults in their lives, and they were very, very forgiving of mistakes that the adults made. And I think it's true. That's why when you asked me about protecting the kids, that's why the first thing I said was, remember that adult is your child's other parent, and they love that. They love their parents. And it's even true for teenagers, even when they can't express it, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I think that, and parents are irreplaceable.
Yes, 100%.
And so I think that if I can do something to help people get through the process a little better, so it's less stressful for them and less stressful for the kids, like that's a mark I want to make on the world.
Awesome. So going back to the original topic of this podcast, who do you want to pay? Who do you want your kids to, who you want to put to college? Your kids or your attorneys? I say the answer is hire Joy Rosenthal as either your mediator if you're in New York City, or get the course and at least get educated of how not to put your attorney's kids through college and put that money in your card. But anyway, and I say that jokingly, but I'm actually being sincere. I think this is. I mean, if I had known this, I probably would have gone this route. Although I didn't spend $100,000 in any of my divorces because I just went through the courts and did everything. Yep, if that's what I got to pay, that's what I got to pay, and just kept doing it. I didn't really fight. But out of curiosity, Joy, this has all been great information. I've never heard of this before, where you have a course to teach that. So that's a great. I think that's really innovative on your part and very giving. This is why I asked you why you're doing this, and very, very giving. But is there anything I did not ask you that you think will benefit the audience?
Get as much information as you can, get reliable information, and take care of yourself mentally, physically, spiritually, financially, like all of those things.
Right.
Because and realize that it's not going to last forever. This time in your life is not going to last forever.
Yeah. Actually, I do have one last question. In your years of doing this work, have there ever been a time where people were in mediation and they said, you know what, I think we shouldn't get divorced. I think we should just get marriage counseling. Thank you for your help, and just stop the process? Has that ever happened?
Sometimes I check back with people and they say we got back together, but it doesn't happen very often. Usually by the time they come to me, they kind of know this is what's going on.
Yeah, they kind of know. Okay. I was just curious. Anyway, that is my last question. I was like, you know what? I got to ask this because I was curious, because I've heard of it once or twice, but not often. So I guess that's the norm. But anyway, this will be the end of this episode. I hope you guys had a lot out of it. But the first thing I want you to do is I want you to go to the show notes, grab the course. If you're thinking about divorce, whether you're in New York City or not, grab the course. I think you're going to learn a lot about it before you even get divorced, or even if you're in the middle of everything, you know what to ask your attorney, and that is key. Information is key, folks. So with that, I'm going to put an end to this episode of this Meet the Attorney series. I will have another one of these Meet the Attorney series in the next few weeks. But until then, this has been Frank Deming, the local business guy, and you've just been blessed by the great Joy Rosenthal. Take care, everyone. Until next week. Peace out.
Thanks for listening to another episode of Marketing Solutions for Local Businesses, the podcast where you will discover all the latest and greatest digital marketing tools, tips, and strategies you will need to implement in order to stay ahead of your competition. Don't forget, any links that were mentioned during the broadcast will be available to you in the show notes, so be sure to grab them while you have the chance. Incidentally, if you have any topics that you would like for us to discuss on the show, be sure to send an email to the email provided in the show notes, or click the Contact Us link and let us know what topic you would like us to help you with, and we'll be sure to add it to our schedule. If you would like for Frank and his team to look at your digital marketing presence and give you a free evaluation, simply click the Request a Free Consultation link in the show notes to get a hold of them. That being said, until our next episode, make it a successful digital marketing day. Peace out.